Salvete omnes. Hello everybody. I am Lavinia and I am the owner of this lovely Roman villa that you see behind me that we have found here at Halberton. Very exciting find, and we've got lots to tell you about the development of this traditional villa construction that we have here. It's a corridor type villa, rectangular, with outbuildings and an estate and a gatehouse and a track up. As you can see, we're now at the front of the villa. Here we have the original porch that was actually an extension onto the original villa. We have two phases or multiple phases of villa construction, and we've got a standard rectangular shape with extensions on both ends. But here we have the porch, the main door, and here I am stood on the Roman cobbles that would have been out here to make the cobbled courtyard. Behind us, the track would have come up from the gatehouse. As you gaze down the field, you will see a telegraph pole. And on that telegraph pole, you've got a wire with some yellow tape. That is roughly where the gatehouse was for the entrance to the villa estate. So when we talk about a villa estate, when we're in the countryside, we're looking at a villa, a house of varying size, sometimes 1 story, sometimes 2 stories. It would grow and expand over time, much like our houses do now. It would be redecorated over and over again. And it would have, in part of the estate, you would have farm buildings, crops growing, outbuildings, butchery, all sorts of different activities going on within them. Here we are in the dining room of the Roman villa. In Latin, dining room is triclinium. Tri means 3 and clinia is couch. And typically a Roman dining room would have been laid out with 3 couches in a U shape around a central panel, probably a mosaic like we have here, with tables and the food set out that way. This is really exciting, this mosaic, because it is known as a polychromatic mosaic. That means many colours. As you can see, we've got slate blue grey, we've got creamy white, and we've got a terracotta red. In the centre of the mosaic, we have a flower design, and creating the border around the centre design, it's called guilloche, but it looks like a twisted rope, and we've got the same 3 colours twisted around in a circle. And then in terms of an artistic impression of what else would have been there, probably squares, geometric squares placed at different angles to create a really eye-catching design. As ever with archaeological digs, we often come across things and features that we're just not certain what it would have been and what it might have been used for. That's exactly what we have here. So in this pit here that's been recently dug out, we have a worked stone slab. It's also given us lots and lots of material culture evidence. We've had lots of coins come out, lots of bones, lots of nails, and it's a really interesting idea of what this could have been used for in the Roman villa. But probably the most interesting thing that came out of this was this piece of worked stone that's very architectural in detail, but it's got a lovely decoration on the front. It looks a bit like a window or a flag here, and we're just not certain what this was from or what it was used for. But what we do know is that this stone is not local, so wherever it's come from, it's come a long way. Also in here, we have this beautiful bone pin, and it would have been used by the ladies of the house, much like myself, to attach to their dress, to their stola, and use as a beautiful buckle brooch. It's again a fascinating find. Was this thrown away? Had it broken? Why was it in this pit? Is it some kind of rubbish? We just don't know, but again, it's a beautiful find and exciting to see. So this is another interesting feature of this Roman villa, because what we have here are 6 post holes that are at regular intervals. You've got 2 at the front here, 2 in the middle, and 2 at the back. We just don't know what this central area here was used for, but it might well have been a staircase, but we have no absolute concrete evidence for that. The wood obviously has rotted away. If it were a staircase, that would be really exciting, because that would mean that this villa has an upper level, probably just a single room deep one, and probably just along the back here. But again, we just don't know at the moment, but we hope we might be able to find out more when further excavations have happened. So we're now in an extension that was put onto the original villa building. And at the back here, so we've got, along the back here, we had a veranda with a sloping roof that went off with rain into water gullies. And in this area here, this trench here, this is actually a robber trench. So all the stone has been robbed out. But what's really interesting is, as the robbers went in to take the stone away, a lot of Roman detritus that was left behind has fallen in onto the trench that the robbers created. And one of the things that was found in here just recently is this amazing piece of amphora. So it's a really big fragment, but you can really see here would have been the handle. We've got the lip would have been up here, but it would have been quite sizable. Probably something for oil, wine, storage maybe. It may even have been used to store grain. We're still in the extension of the villa. What we have here is another really quite interesting trench full of lots of anomalies. What might these things have been? So the first thing is that we have got a flue here. So evidence of burning, so a furnace. We can see that because you've got blackened layers of the soil. You've also got lots of loose slate, which you might also see around the place, which would have been the roof tile that's collapsed in when the roof's fallen in. But possibly this would have been a furnace. We've got the drag out pit here where it would have been cleaned. There are a number of different theories as to what this may have been. Could it have been a hypocaust, which was an underfloor central heating system invented by the Romans? If it were that, then you would expect to find piles of pili, tiles that would have held the floors up. But it could be that it was an early hypocaust in one of the early phases of the villa, and then that's been taken out and the piles of tiles have been crushed up and used for building materials elsewhere. It could also have been a corn dryer or a grain dryer or something to do with cooking. But either way, high heat has been used in this area of the villa. This is a more recent part of the excavations, only really being looked at in the last few weeks. And what we have here, again, is a structure that we're not quite sure what it must be. But because of the channels that we've got, so we've got a channel that runs along here, we've got another channel that's here, and we've got a central channel. This could be, again, something to do with heating. But what it's heating, we just don't know. And the extent of it, we also don't know. It may be a structure that continues under here, under the bank of earth, under the lane and into the next field. So again, it's really exciting to think, what is it? But what's also interesting is if it is for heating, then there's no blackened earth that we've seen elsewhere. So this area of the villa estate is where the outbuildings are, and this has been the main focus of the excavation since April. All that you see behind me has only been really dug since the beginning of April. So there's some really exciting finds here. We've got evidence of craft, we've got evidence of butchery, we've got evidence of industry, and the major find that we have, which I will take you to first, is a water tank. So we found a water tank. You can see behind me the white, creamy white marble, stone, sorry. So that is made of Roman concrete, which is opus signinum. So it is crushed building materials, crushed really finely powdered, mixed with lime and water, and it makes this really solid, hard, but waterproof concrete. And so immediately we saw the water tank, we knew we were onto something potentially special. But because we only had one, we thought, well, this might not be anything to do with the bathing. This could be to do with the industry. But then, just last week on June the 28th, just to my left here, we had a second water tank found. And it's currently being excavated, and there are steps down into it. There are also steps with this water tank here. Around the edge of the water tank, it's got a curved edge, which would mean that the water was kept in it. So now, because we've got two of these water tanks, it's fairly probable that we do have a bathhouse of some description here, with the first water tank here on my right being the cold plunge, and the second water tank here on my left being the warmer end of the bathing experience. For the Romans, it was all about the warm room, getting nice and sweaty, then going into a hot sauna-like atmosphere to get even hotter. You would rub yourself with olive oil, you had a strigil that you would use to scrape the dirt off you, and then you would finish in a lovely cold plunge, which is what we have here. So here we are further down the outbuilding site. We're moving away from the bathhouse and we come to this trench here. This is quite an interesting trench because what we feel here is that we've got a ditch that ran across the width of the building here. Whether it had a roof, we don't know. But what we also know is that it would have filtered water out probably that way and taken it away from the baths. You may well wonder where the Romans got their water supply from the baths. Well, it is known that we have a series of springs in the area that were discovered when they put the canal in. So there are water sources available. The field also slopes down and up, so it may well have been that there was a water source that's long gone now, or a marshy area just over here behind me. Another interesting fact we've discovered about the water ditch is that actually over time it's become quite a rubbish pit. So you can see there the blackened earth, and that's probably rubbish that has been excavated and dug out of the kilns that we've got over here. But it's also yielded a whole world of finds. We've got lots of coins, lots of bones, bits of pottery, nails, all sorts of things that also fit with the agricultural and industrial area that we are in. And it's also just worth noting that we think that there was probably an industrial site in the field next door to us, as there is evidence of iron ore smelting. So here we are in an area of high heat industrial activity. As you can see from this slightly shallow trench here, we've got blackened soil here, which means there's definite evidence of burning. So we think here we've got three, there's one here in the middle, and a really big one on the edge here, and they are probable ovens, or more likely kilns of some description, either lime kilns or corn dryers. So in this second area of high heat, what I'd just like you to look at here is the evidence of really super high heat. The grey silver is actually ash. So whatever was in here was heated to a really high temperature. Probably a bit more excavation to do here, but it is linked very much so to this kiln that we've got here. So what we have here, so this stone here would have been the floor level, and I'd like you to imagine that we've got a curved wall here that goes all the way around, and a curved wall that goes all the way around and out here is fairly typical of a kiln shape, possibly a lime kiln. If it was a corn dryer, you'd have high heat furnace under here, hence the different colour soils, the blackened colour. The clay in this one is really unusual though, because it isn't clay from Halberton. So they would have had to have brought this from somewhere, but we're just not sure where. But I'm stood on the floor level, so if you are drying corn, for instance, then you'd pile up your corn here, and it could be heated and dried, and then it could have been ground down. So this is yet another unusual anomaly of this site. What we have here is an intentionally buried greyware pot. You can see the base here, and you can see the rim here. What was in it and why it was buried, we simply don't know. Could it have been ritualistic? Could it have contained any form of liquid? Could it have contained grain? Was it an offering? We don't know. So one of the first things we can do is to take swabs of the inside of the pot and send them away for analysis. What it also could be is it could be a dowsing pot. So it was filled with water, and it was where those that were working in the kilns so close by, because we are so close to the kilns, may have then cooled down their metal instruments. Here we are in the workshop area that probably continued further down the site here. But what we have is a really, really long room, and you can see the walls either side. What we're not sure about is what this long room would have been used for. Possibly it may have been used for grain storage or grain drying, and it could also have been used for animals, for keeping animals stabling. As you can see behind me on either side, we've got smaller rooms marked off. These were possible butchery areas, craft areas. We found lots of different bones and antlers, suggesting that this was a hive of activity. This is the courtyard entrance into this set of workshop buildings. To my right is the villa. To my left would be the main gate entrance. And if they were coming into the workshops, they would have easily been able to come in and in through this courtyard here into the main workshop area. And what we do have is a slightly anomalous stone over here, a big stone, which possibly may have been a wellhead, but now we've found a smaller stone and walls deliberately butting onto it. So, answers on a postcard. What do you think that might be? Who knows? Hopefully the archaeologists will be able to find out. Valete omnes! Gratias ago tibi. Thank you for coming on this tour of my villa with me. I hope you have a wonderful visit to the site. I hope you enjoy the fun day, and most of all, sponsor that mosaic. Had in their houses a little temple that they would have had their household gods in. They had little tiny statues for their ancestors, and they would pray twice a day to their ancestors, and they would leave offerings. So it could be something to do with that as well, but like a lot of the things on the site, there are unanswered